Uh, let's talk about something that I'm sure you use almost every single day,
Okay.
and that is math.
Mm-hmm.
You probably don't even stop to think about it, but all those numbers, shapes, and equations.
Right.
Have you ever wondered
Yeah.
if they're like out there in the universe just sort of waiting to be discovered?
Yeah.
Or if we humans just kind of made them up?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us to this really fundamental debate
Okay.
in both philosophy and mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
And that is mathematics discovered some kind of hidden code of the universe?
Okay.
Or is it invented say the rules of a game?
Oh, wow. That sounds pretty heavy, but I am intrigued.
Yeah, it's definitely a deep dive, but
Yeah.
trust me, it's a fascinating one.
Okay.
And to help us kind of navigate this debate,
Okay.
I think it's helpful to understand the two main camps of thought.
Okay.
So on one side, we have the Platonists,
Plato.
named after the ancient Greek philosopher Plato.
Plato, wasn't he the guy with all those ideas about ideal forms and stuff?
Exactly.
Okay.
So Plato believed that mathematical concepts
Mm-hmm.
exist in this perfect realm of forms independent of our physical world.
Interesting.
So we're essentially discovering these perfect forms through math.
Okay.
So a Platonist would argue that mathematical truths are universal and eternal.
So like the concept of two-ness would exist whether or not humans were around to count to two?
Precisely.
Wow.
Think about pi.
Pi.
The ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter,
Okay.
no matter how big or small the circle is, pi remains the same.
Right.
Platonists would say that this constant ratio
Yeah.
is a fundamental truth of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
waiting to be discovered, not something that we invented.
Okay. I could see how that argument makes sense.
Right.
But what about the people who believe that math is invented?
Yeah.
What's their perspective?
So they're called constructivists.
So constructivists.
And they see math as a tool that we created to model and understand the world around us. Think of it like a map.
Okay.
It's helpful for navigating, but it's not the actual territory itself.
So more like we created math to make sense of things, but it doesn't necessarily reflect a deeper truth about the universe.
That's the gist of it.
Okay.
And they have some pretty compelling arguments.
Like what?
For example,
Yeah.
different cultures have developed different number systems throughout history.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the ancient Egyptians used hieroglyphs for numbers.
Right.
The Mayans used a base 20 system, while we typically use base 10.
Yeah, that's true. If math was a universal truth, wouldn't everyone use the same system?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's a key point for constructivists.
Interesting.
If these fundamental mathematical concepts were truly discovered,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that they would be consistent across cultures.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about more complex mathematical ideas?
Yeah.
Imaginary numbers or calculus?
Yeah.
Those weren't discovered in ancient times, right?
Excellent point.
Yeah.
Imaginary numbers, for example. Yeah.
Are numbers that extend the real number system by introducing the imaginary unit I,
Okay.
where I equals -1.
Hold on, the square root of -1.
Yeah.
That sounds, imaginary.
It might seem strange,
Yeah.
but imaginary numbers are incredibly useful
Oh.
for solving real-world problems,
Really?
especially in fields like electrical engineering and quantum mechanics.
So even though they sound abstract, they have practical applications. That's fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
And the fact that these concepts were developed over time
Mm-hmm.
as we needed them
Yeah,
suggests that math is constantly evolving.
it's true.
Doesn't that sound more like an invention than a discovery?
It does make you wonder.
Yeah.
So we've got these two seemingly opposite views.
Yeah.
Math as a discovered universal truth,
Yeah.
and math as a human-made tool.
Mhm.
Is there any middle ground in this debate?
Believe it or not, there is.
Really?
Some thinkers propose that math might be both discovered and invented.
Both. How is that even possible? Well, think about it this way.
All right.
Maybe the underlying patterns and relationships,
Okay.
like pi or even the Fibonacci sequence, are out there waiting to be discovered.
The Fibonacci sequence, remind me what that is again.
Sure. So it's a sequence of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones.
Right.
So it starts like this 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that this sequence,
Yeah.
a purely mathematical concept, shows up everywhere in nature.
Really?
From the arrangement of petals in a sunflower
Wow.
to the spiral of a nautilus shell.
So those underlying patterns could be part of the universe's inherent structure.
Exactly.
That's it.
But the way we express those patterns,
Okay.
the symbols we use, the systems we create to organize them, those are our inventions.
So it's like we're discovering the raw materials of math out in the universe.
Yeah.
But we're building our own unique structures with them.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like the fact that 2 + 2 = 4
Mhm.
is a fundamental truth about quantities, but the symbols we use to express it,
Okay.
2 + = 4, those are human-made.
That's a really interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
So are we saying that even Einstein, when he came up with his theory of relativity, was both discovering and inventing?
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Einstein's theory uses math to describe the universe.
Right.
But the specific equations he wrote down
Mm.
were tools he created to express those underlying truths
Okay.
that he was uncovering.
So it's a combination of both.
It's a beautiful example of how the discovered and invented aspects of math can work together.
This is definitely making me think about math in a whole new way.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
So we've got these three perspectives now, discovered, invented, and this mind-bending both idea.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Well, let's explore what each of these perspectives means for our understanding of the universe science and even ourselves.
Okay.
You know, it's not just an abstract debate. It has some pretty big implications.
Okay. Let's dive into that then.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the fascinating world of mathematics. Before we ventured into the depths of this debate, we were establishing the groundwork. Do you recall the two primary schools of thought?
Absolutely. We have the Platonists who believe math is a universal truth just waiting to be discovered, and the Constructivists who see it as a human-made tool. And then we explored that mind-blowing middle ground, the idea that math could be both discovered and invented.
That's right. And now we're going to explore what each of these perspectives means for our understanding of the universe science and even ourselves.
Okay, let's start with the Platonists.
Yeah.
If they're right, and math is a discovered universal language, what does that tell us about the universe?
It suggests a level of order and structure that's independent of us. It implies that there are fundamental truths governing reality waiting to be uncovered.
So if the Platonists are right, is the universe basically just one giant math problem waiting for us to solve it?
Some physicists and mathematicians actually believe that. They see the universe as inherently mathematical, with laws and principles that can be expressed in precise mathematical terms.
That's kind of a beautiful idea in a way. It's like there's this hidden order to everything, and math is the key to unlocking it.
It is a compelling idea.
Yeah.
And if math truly is the universal language, then it makes it the perfect tool for describing and understanding the natural world. Think about how successful math has been in fields like physics, chemistry, astronomy. It seems to support the idea that we're uncovering some fundamental truth about reality.
Well, what about the Constructivists? If they're right and math is an invention, wouldn't that suggest that all of our scientific theories are just stories we've made up?
It's a valid question. The constructivist view does complicate things. If we invented math, then it means it's a product of human creativity, our specific ways of perceiving the world, and potentially our limitations as a species.
So maybe we're not seeing the universe as it truly is, but only as we're able to see it through the lens of our own invented math, like we're limited by the tools we've created.
That's one interpretation. It makes you wonder, could there be other maths out there, other systems of logic and reasoning that are just as valid but completely different from what we've come up with?
It's wild to imagine an alien civilization with a totally different kind of math and maybe a totally different understanding of the universe because of it.
It is, and if that's the case, it means that the truths we uncover through science might be more contingent than we realize. Perhaps they're dependent on the specific mathematical tools we're using to understand the world.
Okay, my head is spinning. This is getting pretty deep.
Yeah.
Can we bring it back down to earth for a minute? Does any of this really matter for everyday people who aren't physicists or philosophers?
It absolutely does. Think about it. The way we think about math affects how we approach problem-solving decision-making, even our overall worldview. If you believe math is discovered, you might see the world as more fixed and determined.
Like there's a right answer for everything, and we just have to find it.
Right. But if you believe math is invented, you might be more open to different perspectives, to creative solutions to the idea that there isn't always one right way to do things.
So how we view math impacts not just abstract theories, but how we approach life in general. That's fascinating. What about the relationship between math and technology?
This is where it gets very practical. It's easy to see how math is essential for building bridges, designing airplanes, creating computers.
Definitely. But how does the discovered versus invented debate play into this?
Well, consider this. If math is a discovered universal truth, then technology is simply us applying those pre-existing mathematical truths to create new things. We're essentially harnessing the power of the universe's own logic.
But if math is invented by us, then technology becomes more of a human creation, something we're building from the ground up based on our own logic systems.
Exactly, and that raises some ethical questions as well. If we invented math and then used that invented math to create technology, are we essentially shaping the world in our own image? Are we imposing our own logic on the universe, perhaps to its detriment?
Wow, that's a lot to consider. I think I need a moment to process all of this. This is seriously thought-provoking stuff.
It is. Why don't we take a quick break to gather our thoughts, and when we come back, we can explore some even deeper questions about the nature of reality itself and what the future holds for mathematics.
Okay, we're back, and wow, that last segment really got me thinking
Yeah.
about math as a tool we invented to shape the world. It's a powerful concept.
It is powerful, and it kind of leads us to some even deeper questions about the nature of reality itself. I mean, we've been talking about this math discovered or invented debate, and now we're at this point where it intersects with some fundamental philosophical questions.
Yeah, I'm ready to get philosophical. What are we talking about?
Well, we touched on how a Platonist view suggests a universe with this deep inherent order.
Right.
It implies that reality is at its core mathematical.
So it's like everything we see around us is just a manifestation of this underlying mathematical blueprint. Like we're all living in a giant equation or something.
Yeah. And it's an idea that has captivated thinkers for centuries.
Yeah.
It suggests this level of elegance and determinism to the universe.
Yeah.
The idea that everything fits together in this logical and predictable way.
I see. But on the other hand, we have the constructivist perspective.
Right.
Where math is a human invention.
Yeah.
Does that mean our understanding of reality is completely subjective?
Yeah.
Is there even an objective reality out there, or are we just making it all up as we go along?
That's a question that has puzzled philosophers for ages. If
Right.
math is a human creation, then it means that our understanding of the universe is shaped by our own cognitive processes,
Right.
our cultural biases,
Okay.
and even our limitations as a species.
So maybe we're not seeing the universe as it truly is, but only as we're able to see it
Right.
through the lens of our own invented math.
Yeah.
It's like we're looking at reality through a filter.
It's a compelling argument, and it raises the question, if there are other maths out there, other ways of understanding and describing the universe,
Right.
would those lead to completely different scientific theories and technological advancements? I mean,
Yeah.
what would those worlds look like?
Wow, that's a mind-blowing thought.
It is.
So after exploring all these different perspectives, where do we land?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway from this incredible deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that there's no easy answer.
Okay.
The debate about whether math is discovered or invented is still very much alive.
Right.
And it kind of pushes us to think critically about the foundations of our knowledge.
So it's not really about picking a side.
Right.
It's more about appreciating the different perspectives
Yeah,
and recognizing the complexity of the issue.
absolutely. And I think there's beauty in that complexity.
Okay.
It reminds us that even in a field as seemingly concrete as mathematics,
Yeah.
there's still room for mystery, for debate, for wonder.
This whole conversation has definitely shifted my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm never going to look at a math equation the same way again.
That's the power of a good deep dive.
Yeah.
It challenges our assumptions, it expands our horizons,
Right.
and maybe even leaves us with more questions than answers.
Speaking of questions, before we wrap up, I have one more for you.
Okay.
We've talked about alternate maths, different systems of logic.
Right.
If those systems exist, what would that world look like?
Yeah.
Would it even be comprehensible to us?
That's a question ripe for exploration.
Yeah.
Could there be a world where logic works differently,
Okay.
where shapes have different properties, where numbers behave in ways that we can't even imagine?
Wow.
It's a fascinating thought experiment.
It is. I think I'm going to need to sit with that one for a while. This whole deep dive has been incredibly thought-provoking.
I encourage you to keep pondering these ideas,
Okay.
explore the resources that we'll link in the show notes.
Very
And most importantly, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that's how we make sense of the world, whether that world is governed by a pre-existing mathematical order or whether we're the ones shaping it with our own creative minds.
Well said. Thanks for taking us on this incredible journey.
It was my pleasure.
And to all of you out there, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another exploration into the fascinating and often unexpected depths of knowledge.